Spanish Empire in South America, year 1541. In Quito, which was officially part of the Spanish Kingdom of Peru, conquistadors Gonzalo Pizarro and Francisco de Orellana are caught up in a conversation about a mysterious town of El Dorado, a place which was rumoured by the Spaniards to be made entirely out of gold. But where did this story come from? 8 years prior, in 1533, Gonzalo Pizarro's brother Francisco captured the last Inca emperor Atahualpa. In exchange for his freedom, Atahualpa offered Pizarro to fill a room where he was kept prisoner with gold, and 2 more rooms with silver, all filled up to the level of reach of his arms. After 2 months he honoured his promise, and some sources estimate that Spaniards became richer by 1.3 million pesos de oro, or about $500 million in today's money. On the other hand, findings of small amounts of gold were often greatly exaggerated by the Spaniards in order to get the Spanish crown and nobles to support their exploration of the Americas. The legend of the 7 cities of gold became mixed with stories of El Dorado. Another source of gold and riches in South America were spices. La Canela, the Valley of Cinnamon, became mixed in with the stories of El Dorado and other mysterious riches of the continent. Just before the expedition, conquistador Gonzalo Diaz de Pineda, shortly after returning from his exploration of the high Andes, told Gonzalo Pizarro that he found some trees with an aroma of cinnamon, and had understood his informants that there was a whole cinnamon plantation further east. He was, however, repelled by the local tribe called Chijos, but not before he discovered from some captives that beyond the Cinnamon Valley existed a limitless land where people clad in golden ornamentation and jewellery. Those stories aroused the greed of the Spaniards, so Pizarro started preparations for departure out into the wilderness to investigate the rumours of gold and cinnamon riches east of the Andes. Gonzalo Pizarro departed in February 1541 with an army of 220 soldiers, nearly 200 horses, a herd of 2,500 pigs for food, and about 4,000 Indian porters, who were forced to join him. Early in their quest, in the Andes, Pizarro encountered some hostile Indians, who, luckily for Pizarro, fled after seeing such a large force that had some strangely large 4-legged animals with them. After gathering only 23 men and a few horses, Francisco de Orellana decided to join Pizarro's force and catch up with them at a village called Sumaco. After getting bogged down by the same Indians, who, after seeing such a small force, decided to attack Orellana and his men, Pizarro sent out a small force to help Orellana get through. Soon Orellana joined Pizarro at their camp in Sumaco. Pizarro suggested Orellana and his men should rest from their journey and decided to take his best 70 men on a mission east in search of cinnamon and gold. He left the horses behind as they were no use to him in a dense jungle terrain. After weeks of marching, Pizarro came across dispersed stands of cinnamon trees. There he found some local Indians and tortured them in order for them to give up the location of whole cinnamon plantations which would bring riches to Pizarro. However, the locals insisted they did not know anything about cinnamon, and after finding nothing in the area, Pizarro, now angry and depressed, killed many locals by burning at the stake. Pizarro then decided to backtrack his way to Orellana, who was at their camp in Sumaco. His army veered slightly to the north and reached a great river of coca, which was too wide to cross. Soon a local Indian chief, Delacola, rode across the river with a few men to meet the Spaniards. Della Colla heard rumours of Spaniards' atrocities against a neighbouring tribe and wanted to see who these foreigners were and what they wanted. Pizarro quickly asked him whether beyond, downstream, there might be rich lands where they might find gold. Knowing the fate that has befallen his neighbours, Della Colla wanted to give the Spaniards the answer they wanted to hear, and hence nodded yes. Downstream to the east you will find riches. To his surprise, Pizarro took Della Colla prisoner to be used as a guide and started heading downstream to the east. Soon they reached a deep river gorge near the stunning San Rafael Falls, which they slowly crossed by using fallen trees and cutting some down to be used as a bridge. While Spaniards were building the bridge, local Indians on the north bank noticed the intruders and started preparing their defence by digging trenches and building wooden forts and barricades. After crossing, the Spaniards were attacked with spears and arrows. However, those primitive weapons were no match for Spanish firepower. After seeing the metal balls easily piercing the flesh and causing instantaneous death at a distance of 100 or 200 paces, the rest of the Indians fled in shock and disbelief. When the Spanish crossed, Pizarro sent a couple of messengers back to Orellana at Sumarco, and soon Orellana joined Pizarro on the north bank of the mighty Coca River. Shortly after being reunited with Orellana, Pizarro sent 50 men on a reconnaissance mission, and after about 15 days they returned, and their leader, Campmaster Antonio de Ribera, reported seeing Indians who wore clothes, and used canoes and seemed quite civilized, living in houses right on the edge of a great river. After hearing this, Orellana and Pizarro decided to take the expedition on a perilous journey down the Coca River. After making their way past the last of the giant cascades, the river became wide and calm, and soon they came across settlements right on the edge of the river. The canoes of the locals were shooting up and down the river in the heart of a well-developed settlement. Pizarro launched a pre-emptive attack on the locals who fled with their canoes, and he captured more local chiefs who joined the chiefs that were captured upstream. After seeing how skillful locals use canoes as major form of transport on the river, Pizarro urged his men to learn how to use canoes and sent them out in search for food, but cautioned them since sometimes up to 150 canoes with hostile local warriors would fill the river. However, the situation became desperate for the Spaniards. They ran out of food, and most of their Indian porters have either escaped or died from smallpox, a disease the Spaniards brought with them and the Indians had no immunity to. At this point, it had been 7 months since the expedition left Quito, but they had only travelled about 150 miles to the east. Pizarro and Orellana were looking for effective ways to travel downstream. Orellana, who had learned many local languages in order to communicate with the Indian population, spent a lot of time with the imprisoned chiefs trying to find solutions. One day, after watching the canoes glide on the water effortlessly, Pizarro and Orellana had an epiphany. They would build a boat. It was an obvious solution. Since most local porters have perished, there were no more slaves who would carry the equipment, gunpowder and other supplies for the Spaniards. They could also easily transport the sick and wounded. Orellana had learned from the chiefs that the river is the main form of transportation. He was convinced this is true when he noticed there were no roads or paths in and out of villages through the dense jungle. For the rest of the month of October 1541, in the place they dubbed El Barco, the boat, which is known today as San Sebastian del Coca, the Spaniards devoted all of their time to building a boat. Wood was in abundance, but the Amazon lacked an important resource for Spanish shipbuilding effort: iron. Horseshoes and the soldiers' armour were melted down and forged into nails. With the help of local chiefs, the Spaniards produced pitch for the boat from resin gleaned from trees, and they used the best lianas for strong cordage. Their ragged or rotting shifts and cloaks were used for caulking the boat. The gaps were then sealed with the pitch. By early November 1541, the watertight but not very large boat was completed, and Pizarro, together with his second-in-command Orellana and the whole army, set out on a new adventure down the river. 20 or 30 of the weakest men rowed on board of the brigantine they named San Pedro, together with gear and supplies. They also stole some canoes, but Pizarro and most of the army continued on the riverbank by foot, joined by a few horses and pigs that were left. After 10 miles, they reached Napo River and continued following its flow. Along the river, they found a number of smaller villages where they acquired some maize, yucca, and guavas, which were of great help to the starving army. As they continued their journey downstream, the villages grew further apart until they completely disappeared altogether. The going became painstakingly slow. The expedition encountered numerous deep-side creeks, which forced them to construct makeshift bridges and figure out ways to transport the horses on water. The food became very scarce as they entered the swamps. They haven't seen a single inhabitant in weeks. To make matters worse, Delicola and 3 other chiefs escaped by slipping into the river while still in chains and swimming away. By Christmas 1541, the situation was dire. Food was impossible to find, and the crew were malnourished, weak, and sick. Morale was at an all-time low. By then they were about 150 miles down the river Napo, and people started talking about turning back. Mutiny was on hands, and something had to be done. At this point, Orellana pulled Pizarro aside and proposed an idea, one that, while risky and dangerous, might save them all.